You've probably been told that attraction is about looks, about money, about confidence. But when it comes to a mature woman, the truth runs deeper than that. Much deeper. Because a mature woman has already seen this surface-level charm. She's already heard the clever lines. She's already experienced the loud, attention-seeking gestures. And most of the time, they leave her feeling nothing. What she responds to instead are the quiet moments, the subtle signals, the touches that don't scream desire, but whisper understanding. Because for a woman who has lived, loved, been disappointed, and learned the patterns of people, touch is no longer just physical. It becomes emotional language. A silent conversation between two nervous systems. A moment where your presence either makes her feel safe or makes her feel nothing at all. And the strange part is, most men completely miss this. They think attraction begins with grand gestures. But in reality, it often begins with the smallest contact imaginable. A moment where your hand briefly meets hers, and something inside her pauses. Imagine this. You're walking beside her. Not trying too hard. Not forcing conversation. The evening feels calm, maybe a little quiet. She's telling a story about something from her past, and you're listening, really listening, not waiting for your turn to speak. Then, for just a second, your fingers lightly guide her as you step around a corner or cross the street. Not grabbing, not pulling, just a gentle touch on the back of her hand, guiding, then releasing. To you, it may seem insignificant, but to her, that moment registers instantly. Because mature women are highly aware of energy. They can feel the difference between a man who touches to take and a man who touches to connect. And that difference changes everything. A careless touch says, "I want something from you." But the right touch says something far more powerful. "I see you." And when a woman feels seen, not just looked at, but truly understood, something inside her begins to open. Slowly, quietly. Another moment might happen when you're sitting together, maybe in a cafe, maybe in a quiet lounge where conversation flows easily. She laughs at something you said, not the polite laugh people use in social situations, but the real one. The kind that escapes unexpectedly. And instinctively, your hand briefly touches her arm. Not lingering. Not dramatic. Just long enough to acknowledge the moment. Then you let it go. This is where many men make a mistake. They hold on too long, turning a natural connection into pressure. But the man who understands emotional attraction knows something different. He understands that mystery grows in the space between touches. In the restraint. Because when you show that you don't need the moment to last longer, the moment becomes more meaningful. A mature woman notices that. She notices the man who is comfortable enough to step closer and confident enough to step back. And that balance creates intrigue. But the touch that often affects her the most isn't the obvious one. It's the one that happens during vulnerability. Maybe she's sharing something real with you. Something personal. Something she doesn't tell everyone. Her voice softens. Her posture changes slightly. And in that moment, you place your hand gently over hers. Not to interrupt. Not to dominate the conversation. But simply to acknowledge the weight of what she's saying. That touch does something powerful. Because in that moment, she doesn't just feel attraction. She feels understood. And understanding is the rarest emotional currency in modern relationships. This is the quiet secret many people overlook. Attraction for a mature woman doesn't explode like fireworks. It builds like a slow fire. One small moment, one thoughtful gesture, one subtle touch at a time. And when those moments are real, they linger in her mind long after the night ends. Because what she remembers isn't just what you said. It's how your presence made her feel. Welcome to Female Code Unlocked, the place where we decode the hidden layers of female psychology, attraction, and emotional connection that most people never talk about. If you want to understand the deeper signals behind attraction, relationships, and the psychology of connection, make sure you subscribe and join us for more insights that reveal what's really happening beneath the surface. Because the next touches we're about to talk about trigger something even deeper inside a mature woman's mind. And most men never realize why. There's something fascinating about the way a mature woman experiences attraction. It's no longer driven by impulse the way it might have been years ago. It's filtered through memory, experience, and emotional awareness. Every interaction passes through an invisible radar she has developed over time. She notices tone. She notices intention. And most of all, she notices how a man makes her nervous system feel. That's why one of the most powerful touches you can create happens in a moment most men overlook completely. It happens when she's walking beside you. You're not facing her. You're not trying to impress her. You're simply moving through the world together. And as you walk, your hand briefly rests on the middle of her back, guiding her through a doorway or lightly steering her away from a crowded path. It's subtle, barely noticeable, but something about that gesture awakens a feeling deep inside her. Protection. Not the aggressive, possessive kind that feels controlling, but the calm, grounded presence of a man who is aware of his surroundings and naturally includes her in that awareness. Mature women crave emotional safety more than flashy attention. So when your touch communicates calm leadership instead of demand, it quietly raises your presence in her mind. Another moment arrives in silence. The conversation pauses. Maybe you're sitting beside each other, watching something together, or simply enjoying the quiet between words. Silence can feel uncomfortable for people who are trying too hard to impress each other. But for a mature woman, comfortable silence is incredibly attractive because it signals emotional maturity. And sometimes in that quiet moment, your knee lightly brushes against hers. You don't immediately pull away and panic, but you also don't exaggerate the contact. You simply allow the moment to exist. That tiny point of connection does something strange psychologically. Her mind registers that you're comfortable sharing space with her. There's no awkward tension, no performance, just presence. And presence is rare. Now imagine another moment. She's telling you about something that frustrated her earlier in the day. Maybe a stressful situation at work. Maybe a story about someone who disappointed her. As she talks, you're not interrupting with solutions. You're not trying to prove how smart you are. You're just listening. And when she finishes speaking, your hand gently touches her shoulder. Just for a moment. That small gesture carries more emotional weight than most men realize. Because when a woman feels heard and then receives a calm, grounding touch, her brain associates that feeling with comfort. Not excitement. Not chaos. Comfort. And here's the hidden truth about mature attraction. Comfort often evolves into desire. Because when someone feels emotionally safe around you, their mind stops guarding itself. And when the guard comes down, curiosity begins to grow. She starts wondering about you. She starts noticing your presence more. But there's another touch that works on an even deeper psychological level. It happens when you're sharing laughter. Real laughter. The kind that makes both of you momentarily forget the outside world. In that instant, you might lightly tap her hand or gently bump her shoulder. It's playful, unplanned, natural. And because it happens during joy, her brain begins linking your presence with positive emotion. This is one of the quiet tricks of human psychology. Our minds attach feelings to people. So when someone consistently appears during moments of comfort, safety, humor, and emotional understanding, attraction begins forming beneath the surface. Not forced, not manipulated, just naturally growing. And the most powerful part? A mature woman rarely rushes that process. She lets it unfold. Which means the man who understands subtle emotional connection often becomes far more intriguing than the one who tries to impress her loudly. Because what she's really responding to isn't the touch itself. It's the emotional meaning behind it. There is a moment that happens in every meaningful connection, a moment so small that most people miss it completely. But a mature woman never does. Because by the time she has lived enough life, she has developed a deep sensitivity to emotional authenticity. She can feel when someone is present and when someone is simply playing a role. And one of the touches that quietly reveals this difference happens when she is slightly nervous. Maybe the conversation has turned more personal. Maybe she has just shared something vulnerable, a story from her past, a mistake she once made, or a fear she rarely admits out loud. In that moment, many men rush to fill the silence with advice or reassurance. But the man who understands emotional connection does something different. He pauses. He lets the moment breathe. And then he gently touches the back of her hand. Not squeezing. Not gripping. Just resting there for a second before slowly letting go. It's a tiny gesture, but psychologically it does something powerful. Because it communicates acceptance. Not judgment. Not analysis. Acceptance. A mature woman carries emotional memories that younger people often cannot see. Past relationships that disappointed her. Moments where she trusted someone who later betrayed that trust. Times when she opened up, only to feel misunderstood. So when a man responds to her vulnerability with calm, grounded touch instead of words, her mind registers something unexpected. Safety. And safety is one of the most underestimated triggers of attraction. Because when a woman feels emotionally safe with someone, the walls she has carefully built over the years begin to soften. Not collapse, but soften. And that softness creates curiosity about you. Another powerful moment happens during what seems like a completely ordinary situation. You're standing together somewhere, maybe waiting in line, maybe walking slowly through a crowded place. There's movement around you, people passing by, noise in the background. And instinctively, your hand briefly touches her elbow as you guide her through the crowd. It's protective, but not controlling. You're not pulling her. You're simply creating space for her without making a show of it. To the outside world, it looks like nothing. But to her subconscious mind, it sends a clear signal. You're aware. You're attentive. You're someone who naturally considers her presence. This type of touch activates something ancient in human psychology, the sense that someone beside you is both calm and capable. Not aggressive. Not passive. Balanced. And balance is incredibly attractive to a mature woman because she has already experienced both extremes. She has known men who were too dominant and men who lacked direction completely. But the man who can guide gently without forcing anything stands out immediately. Then there's another touch that creates an entirely different emotional reaction. It happens during farewell. The moment when the evening is ending and you're about to part ways. Most people rush this moment awkwardly. They overthink what to do: handshake, hug, wave, something else. The hesitation makes everything feel mechanical. But when you understand emotional presence, the goodbye becomes something meaningful. As the moment arrives, you give her a warm hug. Not rushed. Not lingering in an uncomfortable way. Just a calm embrace where your hand rests naturally on the upper part of her back for a moment before you release. That brief contact leaves a surprising emotional imprint. Because during that hug, her mind registers something important. How your energy feels when she's close to you. And human memory is strongly tied to emotional sensation. The brain quietly records those moments and replays them later, sometimes hours later, sometimes days later. She might be driving home, replaying the conversation in her mind. And suddenly she remembers the warmth of that hug. Not dramatically, just subtly. And that memory creates a quiet question inside her thoughts. What was that feeling? Because the truth about attraction, especially for a mature woman, is that it rarely begins with fireworks. It begins with emotional impressions, small moments that leave echoes in the mind. Touches that feel natural rather than calculated. Presence that feels calming instead of overwhelming. And when those experiences start stacking together, something deeper begins forming beneath the surface. Something she may not even fully understand yet. But in the final part, there is one touch that can trigger the strongest emotional reaction of all, because it speaks directly to a woman's deepest psychological need. There is one final touch that often creates the deepest emotional shift in a mature woman, and strangely, it's the one that almost never feels dramatic in the moment. It happens when everything slows down. Not during excitement, not during laughter, but during the calm moments where two people simply exist in the same space without trying to impress each other. Maybe the evening is winding down. The conversation has moved through stories, memories, and quiet pauses in between. The energy between you feels comfortable, almost effortless. And as she's speaking, you do something that seems incredibly small. You gently move a loose strand of hair away from her face. That's it. No theatrics. No exaggerated movement. Just a soft, careful gesture, followed by eye contact that lingers for a second longer than usual. For a mature woman, that moment carries emotional weight because it reveals something subtle about you. Attention. You noticed a tiny detail, something most people would ignore. And instead of pointing it out with words, you responded with calm presence. Psychologically, this type of touch activates something powerful inside the human brain. Recognition. It tells her, without saying a word, I'm paying attention to you. And for many mature women, that feeling is deeply attractive because they have spent years around people who are distracted, self-focused, or emotionally unavailable. So when someone quietly demonstrates attentiveness, it feels rare. But here's the deeper layer that most people miss. It's not the touch itself that creates attraction. It's the intention behind it. A mature woman can sense when a gesture is forced or manipulative. Life has trained her intuition well. She can feel when someone is performing attraction rather than experiencing connection. That's why the most powerful touches are always natural. They happen in response to the moment, not as a strategy. They come from awareness rather than expectation. And when a woman feels that authenticity, something interesting begins happening inside her mind. Her curiosity grows. She starts noticing you more closely. Your calmness. Your emotional awareness. The way you don't rush moments that other people rush. And that curiosity slowly transforms into attraction. Because mature attraction doesn't explode instantly. It unfolds. Quietly. Layer by layer. Moment by moment. Until one day she realizes something surprising. She feels comfortable around you. And at the same time, she feels drawn to you. Not because of flashy charm. Not because of clever lines. But because your presence created a series of emotional impressions her mind can't easily forget. And that is the real secret behind connection. Not pressure. Not performance. But awareness. The ability to notice the emotional atmosphere between two people and respond to it with calm confidence. So the next time you're with a mature woman, remember this. The smallest gestures often carry the deepest meaning. A gentle hand on her back. A brief touch during laughter. A calm embrace at goodbye. A moment of silent understanding when she opens up. These are the signals her mind remembers long after the conversation ends. Because real attraction doesn't shout. It whispers. And the people who understand that rarely need to chase attention. They naturally create it. If this insight opened your eyes to the hidden layers of female psychology, make sure you subscribe to Female Code Unlocked and join us for more deep explorations into attraction, emotional intelligence, and the silent signals that shape human connection. Because the more you understand these subtle dynamics, the more naturally powerful your presence becomes.